Hi, this one's for the All-Star parents. We've gotten some questions about kindergarten readiness, and I wanted to go through and explain our readiness goals that we set out at the beginning of the year with feedback from local kindergarten teams, and kind of what are the things that we've focused on and then work on refining, usually in the spring and the beginning of the summer. So this is the sheet we created, and it has several categories. It has must know, nice to know, and then non-essential, things that we try and give positive exposure to. And our must know is actually broken up into two subcategories. The first is made up of social emotional skills, self-care skills, executive function. And those are the supportive skills that then allow students to kind of refine and begin mastery of academic or classroom skills. So the academic and classroom skills that kindergarten teachers have cited as being some of like the really important ones that they'd love for students to be really familiar with are things like reading and writing their first name, not perfectly, but being able to sit down and having a concept of what that's like. Counting to and recognizing 1 to 10. So this is numeracy. So they would be able to count 10 pennies and understand that it's the same number as 10 cupcakes. Even though the object has changed, the value has not. One-to-one correspondence. So once again, working on if you roll dice and you see the number 6 on your dice, then you count out 6 pom-poms. So you understand the value is the same between different objects. Narrative concepts, things like picture walks, being able to go through a story and start inferring meaning without being able to read the words. How to ask questions and respond to stories. Teachers really appreciate, especially kindergarten teachers, appreciate it when students are able to kind of come up with their own concepts or questions or ideas of what might come next, or why do you think they did that or didn't do it. Another thing is their pencil grip, and this is one of those things that we start working on actually at Twinkle's age. We start working on this muscle right here in their hand because this is what they grip their pencil with. This is the muscle that allows them to have a proper grip. There's lots and lots of resources on what a proper grip looks like and what it doesn't look like. We can pass those on. The most important thing is that your student has at home has already done lots of wide arm motions and lots of big movement with their body that then strengthens the muscles that supports their arm and then supports their hand, so that then when they're coming to pick up a pencil, it's so easy. A lot of times the struggles with writing, with getting your child to write, or they say it's too hard, or they're having trouble forming letters, sometimes are traced back to maybe they're just not ready to hold a pencil yet. Maybe they still need to be forming letters with Play-Doh, or they need to be writing it like really big with like a paintbrush on a wooden fence or with chalk on the ground. But pencil grip is one of those things that once a child learns an incorrect grip, it is often really tricky to correct. Another one is recognizing all 26 uppercase letters and their sounds. And the reason why teachers focus on the sounds rather than the names, it's called phonemic awareness, is because when you're reading and sounding out new words that you don't know in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, you have to have a really good internal knowledge of, for instance, the letter I. It could say I, icicle, but it also says inside. And you need to understand that when we see the letter P, it doesn't say pa, it says p. So having really good phonemic awareness often comes from playing with language, rhyming, like trying to find things that all start with the same letter, singing songs, any type of thing that relies on your child speaking or hearing language actually goes forward to support what they're going to be doing in the classroom in kindergarten. Those are like the academic skills that are like really helpful to have when your child first arrives in kindergarten, but none of those are actually possible for kindergarten teachers to build on if they haven't been working on these kind of foundational intangible skills. So social emotional skills, how to discuss problems, cooperative problem solving, emotional intelligence, knowing like what you're feeling, what it feels like in your body, what it might look like on other people, calm down strategies, self-soothing, and fair ways to play. This is because they're going to be launched from a classroom with 15 students into a classroom that might have 20 students. And it helps them navigate their day so much easier as a group. A lot of what we're learning in school, in elementary school, has a lot to do with how we learn how to interact with society later on. Civic obedience, how to cooperate with people, how to share ideas, how to disagree peacefully. Those are very, very important skills that we carry beyond kindergarten. The other is self-care skills, and this once again traces back to the fact that they're going from a classroom with 15 students and 2 teachers to a classroom where it's probably 20 to maybe 25 students, depending upon your school. And often it's just the one kindergarten teacher. Maybe that teacher has an aide, maybe not. A lot of teachers don't. So things like toileting and hygiene, learning how to, like, yes, I need to take myself to the bathroom, and then can they handle every single step inside of the bathroom? Wiping, flushing, washing hands properly is a really big, important thing, because otherwise your kid's gonna come home sick a lot more often than you want them to. Another thing is backpack and lunchbox management. Once again, this is something we start in Twinkles and we keep building and building and building until the idea is when they go off to kindergarten, they are ready to go. They know exactly how to zip and unzip a backpack, how to wrestle things in and out of that backpack, how to open their lunchbox. Oftentimes kindergartners will come home hungry in the fall because eating in a cafeteria is incredibly distracting. It takes a really long time for them to be able to tune out all the stimulus happening around them of like new people, new things, new sounds, new smells, and be able to focus on their food. And it's so much easier as well if they're able to just open their lunchbox, eat the food inside, close it up all by themselves, and they don't have to wait for someone to come help them. And being fed well in the middle of the day is a huge part of being able to learn and interact in that group and being able to come home and kind of cope with the rest of the day. Another thing is care for belongings and materials. So something that kindergarten teachers want to see is that children understand how to walk across a classroom holding scissors safely. They understand that we put caps on markers. We hang up our jackets instead of throwing them on the floor. And once again, it seems like such a simple skill and like, why is this important? But when you have 25 students in a classroom, if the teacher has to focus just on getting your child to put their shoes on or to put their belongings away correctly, it's going to take up even more of their time and energy that could be devoted to having a conversation or reading a story together. So those are in the must-know category. That's what we consider core skills, and we start building that foundation super early. And the idea is that basically by spring in the Comets class or Nova's class, that we're basically just refining those skills and kind of retracing and making sure that everyone's got it down. In the nice to know category is counting to and recognizing the numbers 1 through 20, like as they're written, and also what they look like with different objects, right? Sounding out words and creative spelling. If your child is interested in writing, for instance, if they like to pretend to write grocery lists or menus or stories, or they like to title their drawings, that is so amazing, and keep encouraging that. Like, make paper and pencils and markers available to them. And once again, creative spelling, you don't have to worry if your child is not spelling things correctly. What we really want them to do is to practice, once again, phonemic awareness. What is the sounds that make up the word? And they'll get it wrong a lot of times. You'll see a lot of like the PH words, they'll use an F, and the TH sound is really tricky to figure out at first, right? But them just getting that skill of thinking to themselves, what does this word sound like? What is it gonna look like on paper? Another thing is lowercase letters. This is something that kindergarten teachers are prepared for kids who arrive with all levels of understanding. I would say I really like teaching kids to write their name in the correct way that they'd write it in the classroom, which is an uppercase first letter, lowercase the rest of the letters. But through the course of the year in kindergarten, they'll get really good instruction in lowercase letters. Another thing is to read and write their last name. That's really handy, especially maybe there's like more than one kid with a first name. They're gonna need to recognize like that's not their folder or their seat or something like that. It's really, really helpful for that. Another thing is knowing their birth date. Oftentimes that helps in emergency situations, and also a phone number, like a grown-up's phone number. That helps a lot as well. Something that we feel is important just from a safety perspective. And then from the non-essential positive exposure, which is that outer ring, things that it's, you know, maybe they've seen it once or twice, or maybe it's just kind of been around. They've played with the concept with you somehow. Those are CVC words, which is consonant, vowel, consonant. So dog, cat, car, box. And a lot of times those are really fun to play with, like Scrabble tiles, or maybe you write those letters on Legos and you play a game of like, let's see if we can make these letter sounds make a word we know. Another thing is sight words. You can point those out a lot of times in the titles of books, because kids memorize the titles of their favorite books, and you can say, oh, well, I noticed that has the word the, and this other book has the word the. Oh, that's really cool. So calling attention to sight words, which are often words they just need to memorize over time, because that makes reading go a lot more smoothly. They memorize the sight words, and it makes it easier to decode, to read new words that are in the sentence. They don't have to focus on the sight words. The other thing is penmanship. We focus a lot on understanding how a letter is formed. It's made up of big lines, big curves, little curves. And over time, what happens is their fine motor skills will catch up to the concepts, but that's something we don't really ride super hard on, because we know that that comes later, but we do demonstrate it a lot. So we make sure they have positive exposure to like, this is how we write letters properly. So these are the readiness expectations. Once again, we got them by reaching out to local kindergarten teams and asking them what they felt was the most important skills in their classroom. Like, if every student showed up with this set of skills, would that make your life easier? And we kind of took what the commonalities were from each team's list from each school. The nice thing is that if students show up and they actually don't have these like academic or classroom skills down pat, that's perfectly fine. It really does come back to these skills up here. And I actually forgot to go through executive function. Executive function is flexible attention, being able to shift your attention appropriately. Working memory, which is like, I remember the rules of the game as we're playing the game. I don't have to keep asking, or I don't forget what the rules of the game are. And then inhibitory control. A lot of times the best, most famous example of this is the marshmallow test, the study that was done to see if students could resist the temptation to eat the marshmallow with the idea that they would get to eat two later. Another example of inhibitory control is knowing, for instance, like, I have to wait to get out of my seat until the bell rings. Are they going to jump out of their seat right away just because it springs into their mind that they want to get up? Or are they going to be able to remind themselves, like, I'm going to wait until the bell rings to get out of my seat? So those are all skills that are built in a lot of different ways. Primarily, the way that kids learn is through play. There's so much science behind this. There's a lot of research done in developmental neuroscience and psychology that play is the way that human children learn, and often the reward is fun. Not all play is necessarily going to appear to be fun, but Fun is kind of that like little nugget of chocolate at the end of finishing your salad or something like that, right? Play sometimes looks difficult or it's frustrating, but that's often because a child is working on an emerging skill that they haven't mastered yet. And the best part about play is that it's interdisciplinary. So when you've made slime and you're playing with it, you haven't just made slime and you're not just playing. Your child has actually learned some chemistry concepts. They're experiencing with physics. They're experiencing with like gravity and cause and effect. They're using language skills to describe things that are slimy or gooey or it's sliding. It's sticking to me. It's so sticky. It's just like that other thing that was sticky. And what we know is that like all of these concepts, like physics, chemistry, language, like they all exist, but scientists took the time to describe the properties and the patterns behind them. But we discover them best as children when we're hands-on playing with them and we're able to experiment as we will in kind of like a low risk kind of way. And so that's kind of my best advice to you is if you're worrying about kindergarten readiness, just know that we've been building the foundation for your child for years, for months, very intentionally building in skills through play and through intentional activities. But the best thing to do right now is to work on those very foundational, intangible skills and then support the other skills through play and reading and games and baking and every little thing you can imagine that's not necessarily a classroom activity is also going to do some really excellent work in preparing for kindergarten. If you have any questions or any specific examples where you're trying to figure out like, is this helpful to my child, or my child's not doing XYZ, or they're doing lots of this other thing and I'm worried that they'll never learn this thing over here, feel free to email us. Email us at learneverywhere@allstarkidscompany.com and we are more than happy to answer your questions. We love answering questions. This is the thing we're passionate about, is teaching our students. And honestly, not having them in the classroom is really hard because we love doing that hands-on interaction with them, but helping you feel more confident in having your child ready for kindergarten is the next best thing. So definitely feel free to reach out if you have any other questions. Bye.